Hello, welcome to my channel. In this video, I am going to show you how to create different collar styles in Clo 3D. As usual, I will start with the basic style, which is a camp collar. Camp collar is a casual, open collar shirt style. In 3D window, I have uploaded a t-shirt block. I need to create a front button placket to be able to make camp collar style. First, I will add a center front internal line. Right-click and choose Cut and Sew. For this style, I will make front placket 1.5 inches wide. Right-click on Center Front Segment and choose Offset Pattern Outline. Enter 0.75 inches, which is half of the total placket width, and click OK. Right-click on the offset line and add a 1.5 inches internal line. Add a point to the top of this internal line on the front neck. This will be the starting point for the collar. To make it easier to attach collar to the neckline, I will use sewing tool to close front placket so it will not shift around and cause collision during simulation. Next, I can start making the collar pattern. Since it's a symmetrical collar, I only need to create half side of the collar. First, I need to find out the neck measurement. Use Edit Pattern tool. Hold Shift and click on Center Back and Center Front Neck line. Next to the cursor, it will show the total amount of these two segments. Use this measurement to create a rectangle. The normal height of camp collar is around 2.5 to 3 inches. On the bottom of the rectangle, I will use back neck measurement to add a point from center back segment. This point will match your shoulder seam. Then, add a half-inch point to the front segment line. Delete the corner point. Use Edit Curvature tool to reshape this line into a smooth curve shape. Adjust this segment line to match your front neck measurement by moving the point, or you can right-click and use Change Length function. Now the half pattern is done. The next step is to add a roll line. A roll line of a collar is the line that indicates where the collar will naturally roll or turn when the garment is on the body. For this camp collar, I will make the roll line around 1 inch from the front, and about 1.5 height from center back. Right-click center back line and choose Unfold. Join overlapping points on the internal line and then convert this point to a curve point. Place this piece on avatar using arrangement point. Use free sewing tool to connect the collar with front and back bodice. Strengthen the collar. Use Fold Arrangement tool. Click on the internal line and fold it down. Simulate to check if there's any issue. Next, create an internal line on the front bodice pattern. This line will start from the first button placement in center front toward the shoulder point. Remember to remove sewing on the placket to be able to fold it down. Use Fold Arrangement tool, click on this line. Fold it down to create a V-neck. You can turn on Fold Rendering in Property Editor to get a nice sharp edge. Lower particle distance and simulate to let the collar drape nicely. Unstrengthen all the pieces and simulate again to make sure everything fits correctly. And the camp collars is done. In Clo-3D, if you turn on thick textured surface, you will be able to render the shirt as is. However, if you are making a production pattern, you need to create a front facing to finish the collar. As you can see in texture surface mode, after folding down the front collar, the back side of the fabric will be showing. So here is the easiest way to add facing. First, use internal polygon to create the facing shape on the front bodice pattern. Select both front bodice. Right-click and choose Clone Layer Under. Right-click the new under layers in 3D window and choose Flip Normal. Simulate to make sure there's no issue. You can freeze the top layer during simulation to prevent collision. Once everything fits fine, right-click on the under layer's internal line and choose Cut. Delete extra portion. The last thing to do is adding buttons and final finishing to complete the shirt. And here is the render result for the camp collar. Now you have an idea of how to make the basic collar. Use the same method, I can easily create the next style. Band collar. Band collar is using a band of fabric that goes around the neck without folding over or turn down. I used the same t-shirt block and created the front placket first. Then, I need to find out the neck measurement. Unlike the camp collar, band collar starts and finishes at the edge of the placket. Make sure you measure the neck width correctly. In this case, the total measurement from center back neck to the end of the placket is 8.6 inches. I will use rectangle tool to generate a 8.6 by 1 inch pattern. Use back neck measurement, add a point to both top and bottom of the rectangle segment lines. Then move the front segment line half an inch up. Use Edit Pattern tool to select the front segment line. If you are using 3-button mouse, just right-click to bring out the moving distance window. If you are using Magic Mouse on Mac, just use the Control key. This way you can enter the exact amount you want to move a point of a line. Use Edit Curvature to reshape both top and bottom segment lines into smooth curve lines. Move the top corner point and make the front segment line to a 90-degree angle. Add a new point to the bottom segment line that matches the width of the placket. Then, add another point to the top segment line that is 1 inch from the front. Use Smooth Curve tool, drag the top corner point into a curved shape. It's not necessary to curve the top edge. You can leave it as is or make a diagonal line according to your design. Right-click on Center Back segment and choose Unfold. Place collar on avatar using arrangement points. Attach collar to front and back bodice, and placket with free sewing tool. Click Simulate and check if there's any issue. Strengthen collar will make it easier to adjust the position. Make sure there's no collision, especially around the overlapping part of the collar. Once everything fits well, I can add the button to the band collar and front placket. And here is the final render. Pretty simple, right? The next style I am going to show you is collar with stand. This is probably the most common collar you will see, especially on men's shirts. Adding a collar stand to raise the collar off the garment and give it height. It allows the finished collar edge to lay smoothly over the neck. In the previous demonstration, I have made the band collar, which is exactly the same way that you will make a collar stand. All I need to do is to add the collar to the stand. First, use polygon tool. Following the top segment line of the collar stand, start tracing from center back to the 1-inch front point. Go down and create the collar tip. Then draw a slightly curved line for the collar edge toward back and finish the center back segment. Make sure the width of your collar, especially in the center back, is less than 2 inches wide. Personally, I like to flip the pattern to the side I normally use when making patterns. You don't need to do this as long as you remember which side of this piece is connecting to the collar stand and which side is the edge. Now I have made the collar shape. Use fullness point tool to slash the collar edge open so the collar will lay smoothly. I am adding 2 slash lines. One on the shoulder point and the other one in the middle of the back neck. Totally, I will add 1/4 inches fullness to the collar edge. Use smooth curve tool to reshape the segment line and make it a smooth curve shape. Double check the segment length and see if they match the collar stand. Next, I will add the roll line on the collar pattern so I will be able to fold it down later in 3D window. For this style, the roll line will be around 1/8 to 1/4 inches from the seam. Place the collar above collar stand in 3D window. Use free sewing to connect the collar to the collar stand. Click Simulate. Strengthen collar. Use Fold Arrangement tool to click on the roll line. Move arrow to fold the collar. Click Simulate to check if there's any issue. The gap in the front is a little big, so I will adjust the collar width to make the collar closer in the center front. Once I am done with adjustment, simulate again to check if it fits alright. Now I like the look of the collar. Delete the roll line on the collar. Lower particle distance to 5 and simulate to let the collar roll edge look more natural and realistic. You can keep the roll line if you prefer to have a sharp edge. Also, for the collar pattern, you can switch to quad mesh in Property Editor. This will help to get an even smoother fold edge. And there, I have finished the collar with stand. I can start adding finishing details to the shirt. Here is the render result. Moving on to the next style. Peter Pan collar. This style has a flat rounded ends that meet at the front of the neck. In the 3D window, I have uploaded a basic blouse block with button front closure. First step. I need to rotate front bodice and match the shoulder seam to the back shoulder seam. You can use Transform Pattern tool to rotate it, but there's an easier way in Clo-3D. Click Walk Pattern from 2D window toolbar. Select front shoulder neck point. Then click back shoulder neck point. Slide cursor to match the two shoulder seams. Right-click and choose Move Walked Pattern to intersection. Using this function, you can also check if both seams are the same length. I can tell my front shoulder seam is slightly shorter, so I will fix that first. Next, use Polygon tool. Starting from the center front neck point, tracing the neck shape to the shoulder point. Then from shoulder point to the center back neck point. Go down to center back seam and decide the width of the collar you want. Then draw the round shape to the shoulder seam. And back to center front to complete the collar pattern. Use smooth curve. Drag front bottom corner point to create a round shape. Using fullness point tool to create a slash line from shoulder neck point to the edge. This time, instead of increasing fullness, I need to reduce fullness. In the spread window, I will enter -0.25 inches and click OK. Adjust the curve on all the segment lines and make sure they are smooth. Check and make sure the collar measurement matches front and back neckline. Select front bodice pattern. Right-click and choose Rotate. Reset along grain direction to bring the pattern back to its original grain line. Unfold the collar pattern. Place collar on avatar with arrangement points. Rotate it a little bit to help the collar drop and drape smoothly during simulation. Attach collar to neck with sewing tool. Click Simulate. Lower particle distance to let it drape nicer. Adjust the shape and width of the collar to your preference. Simulate and check if there's any issue. And this is how you make a Peter Pan collar. To make it more interesting, I am going to add ruffle around the edge. And here is the final render result. The last style I am going to show you is sailor collar. Sailor collar is a broad collar with a square flap at the back and a V-shape front. The way to make sailor collar pattern is actually pretty similar to Peter Pan collar. I have uploaded a t-shirt block on avatar. First, right-click on center front and back seams and choose Cut and Sew to split front and back patterns in half. For this type of collar, I will make necklines slightly wider. On both front and back shoulder seam, I am adding a point 1/4 inch away from the neck point. Use internal polygon tool. Draw a diagonal line from this point to the center front seam. This will be the V-shaped neckline for the collar. Also, I will reshape the back neckline. Select both internal lines and choose Cut. Delete extra pieces. Use Walk Pattern tool. Click on back neck point first. Then click the front neck point. Slide cursor to close the shoulder seam. And right-click to choose Move Walked Pattern to intersection. Use Polygon tool to start tracing neck shape. From center back to shoulder point. And down to center front. Then start drawing the shape of the collar. And back to center back neck point to complete this pattern piece. Rotate this pattern to the correct grain line direction. Use fullness point to draw a slash line from neck to collar edge. Click one side of the pattern and move the piece to close the pattern. Right-click to bring out spread window. Enter -0.25 inches and click OK. Total I reduced 1/2 inch fullness on the collar. Use Smooth Curve tool to reshape the edge. Use Trace tool to delete slash lines. Adjust the shape of the collar to your preference. Once it's done, right-click on center back seam and choose Unfold. Use Gizmo in 3D window to rotate and place collar above shoulders. Attach collar to neck using free sewing tool. Click Simulate. And the sailor color is done. I can add some detail to the collar such as contrast trims. Here is the final render for this basic sailor collar. Since I already showed you the way to make basic sailor collar, I will quickly demonstrate a variation style, which is a deeper V-neck sailor collar with insert panel. Following the same steps like previous example. Use internal polygon to create a deeper V shape in the front bodice pattern. Draw a horizontal line on the center triangle shape, this will be the insert panel. Select all internal lines and choose Cut and Sew. Use Polygon tool to trace neckline and create the sailor collar shape. For this example, I will add an extensions to the front portion of the collar and use them for the tie. Once it's done, unfold the pattern from center back seam. Place it above shoulders in 3D window. Attach to neck with free sewing tool. Click Simulate and check if there's any issue. For the tie, I am not going to actually tie them up here. Instead, here is an easy way you can do. First, add internal lines and sew them together. Simulate to make sure there's no collision. Lift the end of the extension up and use pin box to hold them in place. Create a small rectangle piece. Use Gizmo to rotate and move it above the starting point of the tie. You can use pin box to hold the piece so it won't fall down to the ground during simulation. Click Simulate to let it drape down. Use sewing tool to close it like a loop. Scale down the rectangle width until it stops sliding down. And the sailor collar with insert is done. I hope after watching this tutorial, it will give you an idea of how to make these basic collar styles. Once you know how to make these patterns, you can start creating different variations. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to click like and subscribe.